I'm Africa 54 managing editor Vincent McCory. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. The death toll in the Israeli-Hamas war has risen to at least 2,200 on both sides as fighting rages into its fifth day. Vote counting is underway in Liberia in a presidential poll that is testing the popularity of incumbent President George Weah. And a Ghana-based foundation empowers girls through web and coding skills, mentorship, training, and relationship building. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. Israel continues to pound Gaza with their airstrikes, reducing many neighborhoods to rubble as Palestinian residents in Gaza face growing uncertainty after the territory's only power plant ran out of fuel and shut down Wednesday. The aerial bombardment by Israeli warplanes is sending Palestinians scrambling to find safety. The Israeli military says dozens of its fighter jets struck more than 200 targets in the neighborhood of Gaza City overnight that it says had been used by Hamas to launch its attacks. Hospitals in the Gaza Strip are struggling to treat the injured with dwindling medical supplies. The Israeli military says more than 1,200 people, including 155 soldiers, have died in Israel since Saturday's attack by Hamas. The Gaza Health Ministry says more than 1,000 have been killed and over 5,100 injured. The United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency says 250,000 Palestinians have been displaced in Gaza. Palestinian media says that Israeli airstrikes hit homes in Gaza City, the southern city of Khan Yunis, and in the Bureij refugee camp in central Gaza. Now, there is a concern in Israel about a second front as several rockets and anti-tank missiles fired Tuesday from southern Lebanon landed in northern Israel. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is heading to Israel and Jordan this week to show Washington's support for Israel's right to self-defense. The trip comes as the U.S. vows to work with nations to secure the release of all hostages held in Gaza. Linda Gradstein has more from Jerusalem.
15 rockets and an anti-tank missile were fired Tuesday from South Lebanon at northern Israel, raising fears that the pro-Iranian Hezbollah could join the fighting. That would force Israel to fight simultaneously on two fronts, but Israeli officials say that they are prepared. They also recommended that civilians leave the area. The death toll in Israel has climbed to more than 900, including hundreds of young civilians, as Hamas continues to hold some 130 hostages, including several dual Israeli-American citizens. 14 American citizens are among the 900 Israelis who have been killed so far. Israel said it killed 2 senior Hamas officials as fighting between Israel and Hamas continued for a fourth day, and more than 800 Palestinians have been killed in continuous airstrikes on Gaza. The death toll continued to climb as Israel continued heavy bombardments of Gaza. More than 300,000 Palestinians moved to UN schools after the Israeli army warned them to leave their homes. Whole streets in Gaza were leveled amid chaos.
We had fled from Asaban, escaping from death. There were continuous airstrikes over our heads. They told us to come to Khan Yunis. We came to find death. If we stay in our houses, we die. If we go on the streets, we die. Oh, my beloved brother, he fled from one place to another. Oh, my beloved brother, may your soul rest in peace.
Israel's defense minister said that Israel is moving to what he called a full offensive against Gaza and vowed to liquidate Hamas. Israel has cut off water and electricity, and health officials in Gaza warn of an impending humanitarian crisis. Israel has called up more than 300,000 reservists and seems to be preparing for a ground invasion, said former military intelligence official Yossi Kuperwasser.
We mobilized a lot of forces for that purpose, and they're all in the stages of getting prepared for reaching the level necessary for doing that. Whether it's going to happen and when it's going to happen, I don't know myself, and nobody knows, as a matter of fact, I would say. But it's highly important that everybody knows that they are ready.
Cooper Wasser believes that Iran is behind the Hamas incursion into Israel. So far, Israel has killed 1,500 Hamas gunmen who infiltrated into Israel on Saturday.
Iranian-led camp decided to operate against Israel. Why? It's a big question. I think my assessment is that it's a combination of many things. First and foremost, it is the feeling that Iran and its proxies do not face any real opposition in the way to get and become the strongest element in the Middle East.
Israeli officials say they expect the fighting to continue for at least several weeks. Linda Gradstein, VOA News, Jerusalem.
Well, Israel formed an emergency unity government and war cabinet on Wednesday as its aerial assault on Gaza aimed at rooting out Hamas continues. For the latest on the Israeli-Hamas conflict, let's go to Linda Gradstein, who is standing by in Jerusalem. Good evening, Linda. Now, bring us up to speed on the latest.
Well, the latest is that Israel did form an emergency government, meaning that Benny Gantz, who's a former chief of staff, his party joined the government. The largest opposition party, Yesh Atid, has not yet joined the government. The fighting continues, and in the last hour or so, we've had reports of aerial infiltrations from the northern border, not from Gaza, where most of the fighting has been, but from South Lebanon. And there's concern in Israel that Hezbollah, which is an Iranian proxy, wants to open a second front against Israel, and so that Israel would then be forced to fight on two fronts, against Hezbollah in South Lebanon and against Hamas in Gaza.
Now, there has been talk of Israel actually sending troops into Gaza. How concerned are Israeli citizens about a ground invasion to this very thickly populated area?
Right. So a ground invasion is going to be very complicated. I spoke to a terrorism expert today, a former lieutenant colonel named Miri Eisen. She's the head of the Counterterrorism Institute. And she said that if Israel had to deal with about 1,500 Hamas fighters who crossed the border, on Saturday and massacred hundreds of, civilians, and the death toll, as we know, is well over 1,200. In Gaza, you're talking about tens of thousands of Hamas fighters. It's a very complicated operation. At the same time, there seems to have been a decision in the Israeli military that Israel can no longer allow Hamas to have any kind of military capability, and that Israel has to wipe out that capability any way it can, whether it's the airstrikes that we've been seeing for the last 2 days or whether it's a ground invasion. I'm not sure that decision has been made yet.
Now, we know that Hamas has hostages, and this has been of great concern. Some of them are actually American citizens. How feasible is it, or does it look from the military point of view, that they can actually rescue any of these hostages without, causing any serious risk to themselves and also to the hostages?
First of all, it's not clear how many of those hostages are still alive. I know there have been sort of back-channel negotiations for some kind of prisoner exchange, possibly in 2 stages, letting the women and children out first and then the men. The details have been kept very closely guarded, secret, and it's probably better that way. Hamas will probably try to use those hostages as human shields. Whether or not that will affect the Israeli military campaign remains to be seen. But the Israeli government has not given any public information about those hostages.
Well, Linda, thank you very much. That's Linda Gradstein reporting live from Jerusalem. U.S. President Joe Biden says that America fully supports Israel and that he will ask Congress to take urgent action to defuse Middle East tensions. So far, at least 14 Americans have been killed in the war. Analysts say the possibility that Americans are being held hostage by Hamas complicates the situation. VOA's Anita Powell reports from the White House.
President Joe Biden minced no words in describing the shock and horror of Hamas' surprise weekend attack on Israel.
This was an act of sheer evil. More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered, not just killed, slaughtered in Israel. Among them, at least 14 American citizens killed. Parents butchered using their bodies to try to protect their children. Stomach-turning reports of babies being killed. Entire families slain.
And he clarified Washington's stance on Israel's counteroffensive.
We stand with Israel. And we will make sure Israel has what it needs to take care of its citizens, defend itself, and respond to this attack. There's no justification for terrorism. There's no excuse.
To that end, he said the U.S. has sent a strike carrier group to the region, and he says he'll ask Congress, once a new House Speaker is elected, to take urgent action to fund the national security requirements of our critical partners. Analysts say the carnage has touched a raw nerve at the White House, which illuminated itself in Israel's color over the tragedy.
There may be Americans captured by a terrorist group, and that's got to be a priority of any American president. And the second issue is coming to terms with the deaths of Americans in a terrorist attack in Israel. Add to that all the complexities of a very difficult regional situation. And it involves not only Israel and Hamas, but the possibility of Hezbollah and Iranian involvement. So President Biden is trying to wrestle with all these.
VOA asked the White House whether Biden asked Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to exercise restraint in his military response.
And nobody wants to see innocent life taken. And there, as I said, there's been too much of it. One of the great things about our relationship with Israel is that we're two vibrant democracies, and we mutually believe in things like the respect for innocent life and the rule of law. And we're always stronger together, our two countries, when we show that to the world, that we do respect innocent life and that we do respect the not only the rule of law, but the law of war.
U.S. adversaries were quick to point blame.
Unfortunately, we can see a sharp deterioration of the situation in the Middle East. I think that many will agree with me that this is a clear example of the failure of the policy of the United States in the Middle East, which tried to monopolize the resolution, but unfortunately was not concerned with finding compromises acceptable to both sides.
Kirby said conflict in Israel won't take Washington's eye off other threats, wherever they are.
Any nation who might think that somehow the United States is going to get distracted should think again. We are a large enough, big enough, powerful enough country, economically viable enough. In fact, the economy is incredibly strong right now, that we can look after our national security interests and those of our allies and partners anywhere around the world.
Nor, Biden said, will he walk away from Israel. Anita Powell, VOA News, the White House.
Well, for more on the U.S. military aid to Israel, VOA Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb joins us live from Arlington, Virginia. Hello, Carla.
Hello, Vincent.
Now, we've heard about the U.S. commitment to give Israel military aid. What kind of aid will that be?
Well, I'll give you one key word: munitions. That's what Israel says that it wants, and the president made it very clear that more of those munitions for their Iron Dome air defense would be arriving. Secretary Austin just said today that the first aid arrived yesterday to Israel, and the reason that these munitions are so important is because Hamas has been firing dozens and dozens and hundreds of rockets into Israeli territory, and their Iron Dome is able to intercept these rockets and missiles, but if they do not have the munitions to continue the Iron Dome, it will not work for them. So that is priority number one, Secretary Austin said, and President Biden said. In addition to the support for that, there's going to be financial support for their military as well, because when a country is at war, they are going to need to keep their government and keep their people and keep life running as much as they can, because a lot of things shut down when you're in the middle of a war. So that is also going to be a critical line of support from the U.S. military. But let's not forget here that the Israeli military, it's very strong, it's very capable. It has hundreds of thousands of people in reserves that it can call up. So we're not looking at any U.S. boots on the ground in this scenario, not at least in Israel. But the U.S. does want to show that it is supporting the region and also tried to deter other actors like Hezbollah, for example, or Iran, for example, from taking advantage of the situation. So you've seen a lot of movement into the Middle East region. I just got off the phone with an official who told me that there was a squad of A-10s that has arrived in the region just now from Arizona. And another squadron of A-10 jets are also going to be extended in the region. And the biggest sign of support and deterrence that you will see is the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier strike group in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Yeah, now, very quickly, there are some who wonder whether this will distract from any military aid to Ukraine.
Well, Secretary Austin just finished a press conference in Brussels today, and he said, no, the United States can absolutely support both Ukraine and Israel. He says the United States is committed to stopping terrorism and supporting democratic institutions. Now, keep in mind, those two countries are already the two largest recipients of U.S. military aid. Israel so far has received about $44 billion, Ukraine so far has received about $44 billion from the United States since Russia invaded in February of last year. Israel, on the other hand, has continuously received between $3 and $4 billion in U.S. military aid from the United States. So that will continue and can be ramped up if necessary and if Congress will approve additional funds.
Carla, thank you very much. That's VOA's correspondent, Pentagon correspondent, Carla Babb. Now to West Africa, where vote counting is underway in Liberia following a presidential election that is likely to test the popularity of incumbent George Weah. VOA spoke to voters on the streets of Monrovia.
The process was smooth, no violence, and the poll workers, they did what they could do. I feel that there will be a peaceful election, and moreover, everything was perfect. Because you vote, after voting, they gave you the opportunity to place your ballot sheets in the various ballot boxes. So everything there is transparent. For what I just witnessed, I don't think that there will be any rig in the elections because I saw observers, I saw securities. I mean, once you enter the polling center, they identify. There
is no violence, no demonstration, everything is moving, but you see now the area is clear because they carry everyone in there to speed up the process. But the guys are in there working, they are very slow and they are not really moving forward. When you check in there, you observe that you got almost hundreds of people in there and they are not still doing what we expected them to do, to be fast in the process. But at least thank God, everything is going smoothly now. They are putting things under control. Some people got tight, and they came with tight, and which of course they are not working. They are not working. They came with tight just to register, because since the process was slow, so it's using that tag to come and register faster. So the police are putting things to play. They are catching people and sending them back because of that.
And I'm voting because that is my civil duty. And I'm voting because it is a requirement. After a certain period of time, we are to come out and vote another leader that will be able to steer the affairs of our country. So I think I'm just fulfilling my civil duty, that's all.
Voters speaking on the streets of Monrovia, Liberia. Well, now, October 11th is the global observance of United Nations International Day of the Girl Child. In our technology report, we meet Aisha Ado, the founder of the Power to Girls Foundation, Ghana, an organization empowering young women across West Africa. Here's Paul Dio.
Thanks, Vincent. The Power to Girls Foundation provides web and coding skills, mentorship and training, relationship building for girls in Ghana and nearby regions. I spoke with Aisha Ado in Accra, Ghana, and she shared more about her foundation's empowering work. Welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are one of those young people trying to change the face of Ghana by way of empowering young people. Let's start there.
I'm the founder of Power to Girls Foundation and My Power app. And what Power to Girls Foundation does is that we provide safe spaces through programming and resources for marginalized girls. So we deliver access to programs in personal development, mental health, mentorship, entrepreneurship, and tech-based programs for girls across Ghana. And My Power app is a tech-based platform that allows for girls to connect with mentors, as well as connect with each other in a safer online space. So our whole mandate is really around creating safe spaces for girls specifically.
How has the response been like? I've seen you talk to hundreds of thousands of young girls. What's the response been like? How many people do you have on board?
To date, we have impacted over 5,000 girls. In Ghana specifically, last year, we hosted a conference for International Day of the Girl Child. We're doing so again this year, which brought together 1,200 girls from across Accra specifically. We've run programs for over 2,000 girls, and we continue to do so. So for us, it's really around the impact. It's really around, the support that we're providing these girls. For our tech-based platform, we currently have 750 active users, and this is for girls across the world. So we're really trying to, make our mark in this sector and in this space, but really focusing on, how we can do so in a way that really reflect on the issues and the challenges that girls are experiencing.
Your tech-based program, what type of skills do you teach these young girls?
For our tech-based program, we've done a lot of stuff around introduction to tech, so a lot of coding stuff. We're also going to be introducing a robotics program next year as part of our programming, so we're really excited with that. About that. We're actually doing that in partnership with Makers Place Ghana as well. So there's really a lot of work that we're doing in that regard. And then we also have a tech-based platform, which is My Power app. And with that, girls are able to connect with mentors. So it's a social connection app. Girls are able to learn new skills, they're able to connect with mentors, and they're also able to get mental health support as well. So we look at the app specifically as like a one-stop shop for everything empowerment. So it's like your safe online space where you can go on there, connect with other girls, but then also learn new things. So all the things that we do in our programs in person, we also, basically create it for online as well, so that girls that are not necessarily in the areas that we operate in still have access to Power to Girls resources.
How important are these skills, especially if you're looking at it from the context of the young girl child anywhere in Africa? How important are these tech skills in today's world?
Technology is rapidly evolving the way that we operate, the way that we do a lot of things, from business to education to, every little aspect. And I think it's important that for African girls specifically to be ready for the future of work, we're providing them with the skills necessary, have the skills to be competitive in this competitive market, from jobs to in all industries and in all sectors. So for us, that's one of the reasons why we provide some of these programs, because we want to make sure that, the girl child specifically has access to some of these resources and they have access to the skills that can lead to some sort of economic empowerment as well.
You've been running this incredible program, the My Power app. How can these young girls that you're trying to reach, or people that you're trying to reach, tap into this new technology to empower themselves?
With My Power app, girls are able to connect with mentors, they're able to access a helpline, they're able to learn new skills. And the amazing thing is that My Power app is available on iOS and Android, and it's basically available for girls everywhere. So regardless of where you are, you're able to tap into the Power to Girls community, but then you're also able to learn new skills. So for us, I think that's one of the things that we're very excited about, because it allows for girls in other parts of the world to, join our community, but then they're also able to be empowered through the resources that we have on there.
Aisha, thank you so much for your insight, and keep up the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so very much.
That was Aisha Ado, the founder of Power 2, the Girls Foundation in Accra, Ghana. That's today's Tech Report. Back to you, Vincent.
She's truly, truly phenomenal. Thank you very much, Paul. Be sure to join Paul Dio each Wednesday for his Tech Report right here on Africa 54. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our View Africa programs on our website at viewafrica.com.
This week on Straight Talk Africa. War erupts in the Middle East as Hamas attacks Israel by air, land and sea. Hamas rockets rain down on Israel, spreading death and destruction. Israel fiercely retaliated by declaring war on Hamas and launching an aerial bombardment on Gaza. What does this mean for the balance of power in the region and the world? And where do Africans stand on the conflict? Join me, Hayley Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
More peace, new experience, and some adventure. That is the desires of many women. But what does this journey require? On this week's episode of Our Voices, we discuss what makes a woman want to leave her comfort zone for new adventurous experiences and how that journey may help her to be the best version of herself. We will hear from women who stopped everything, packed their bags, and flew across country, continent, or the world to build new careers, find love, cultures, and more. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In other news, the Lagos state government says Nigeria has airlifted more than 300 of its citizens back home after they fled to Jordan from Israel, where they were on a Christian pilgrimage. As we've mentioned, Israel has launched a military campaign in Gaza after Hamas militants were there carried out a surprise attack. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank are vowing to put more focus on Africa at their annual meetings in Morocco amid criticism from poor nations, which argue that they are inadequately represented within the world's preeminent economic bodies, often lenders of last resort. The IMF and the World Bank use billions in loans and assistance to buoy struggling economies. Well, and the lawyers of 7 survivors and relatives of victims of a violent March 2021 jihadist attack in northern Mozambique have started legal action against France's Total Energies, accusing it of failing to protect contractors at a multi-billion-dollar gas field. Islamic State-linked militants killed dozens of people when they attacked the Mozambican port town of Palma. Well, and that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at viewafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.